Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff Needell, and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast, where, as always, we look at action from around the world of motorsport. He's going to do the agenda today, but one thing I need to mention to you and to our audience is we are going to announce the winner of a superb prize, the British Superbikes at Thruxton prize, where you actually get to go in a car with him. And for those of you that are watching and not listening, you'll notice I'm trying to do a Tiff Needell with my...
for goodness sake. What are those?
The only two trophies I've ever won in my whole life.
Earphone extensions, are they? What is to make sure we notice them? You're putting them right.
Don't be jealous. Look, I'm still having sleepless nights about Goodwood. I genuinely am as well about crashing that bloody car. But anyway, what's on the agenda today, Tiff Needell?
Well, talking about superbikes, we're having a bike week, Chris. We're going to start with motorbikes this week. Moto GP from Silverstone, amazing racing, but there's a bit of a debate about the fans that don't go there. Then we look at Indycar, very spectacular around the Nashville street course, amazing sights. A pretty drawn out WRC. We worry about World Rally Championship, talk about that. Finland, great result for Elfyn Evans, but not the most exciting. Pop over to America to just check out the IMSA sports cars and get halfway through NASCAR because it rained last night and they're about to restart the second half of the race about now. So we don't know who won that. So, yeah, not many venues, but plenty of action. And as I said, we should start with MotoGP.
Well, let's start with a little bit of news, shall we? A little bit of news. And
yes, do you have some news?
I got a little bit of news, not much going on. But, of course, the highlight of this podcast has to be live on air. Well, it's not live on air, live on this recording. We're going to announce the winner. We're going to pick it. Hopefully, technology will work. We've got a random number generator. So... wish me luck on that one. But in the news, so according to Formula Motion, Formula One, and it probably comes as no surprise to anyone, Formula One has lost almost 650,000 American audiences. How do you even quantify that? But
I thought it was the American audience that was growing like mad thanks to Drive and Survive rubbish.
It's the other way around. They probably got them. That's why it grew so much. Now
they got bought. Now they've seen the reality.
Because of Max's dominance. And so
yeah.
And it's no surprise,
the fictional Drive and Survive that got them interested has now been exposed as not the reality of the whole of Formula One. I mean, so really, they've lost what, over 500,000 viewers.
Yeah, they reckon up to
American TV.
Almost 650,000. That's a huge number, but what, do they care? I guess not. They're still selling tickets to Vegas and Miami.
But there was another story that Vegas is looking to cost us more than we expected, but it's still going ahead. And
and for those of you that didn't know that story, so what they're doing now to the hotels, what Liberty Media are saying to the hotels is, you cannot, with your hotel, watch the Grand Prix unless you pay us $1,500 per person.
And it's not per person; it's per. So if it's a restaurant, if your restaurant is licensed for 60 people, then you have to pay 61.5, whether you've got 60 or nobody in there, or else they'll put billboards in front of your restaurant to stop you watching.
Unbelievable. Wow, that's a moneymaker. I kind of get that in a way, but there shouldn't. I mean, there's got to be some sort of contribution. But then the hotels would have done all their business model based on X amount, and now they've got to put this huge amount
and $1,500
per dollars per person per fire regulation. The only other bit of news I got, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I do like a bit of gossip, especially when it's about Perez. But apparently in the contract Red Bull did with Perez, when it got to summer break, if he was 125 points or more behind Max Verstappen, they've got to get out. Red Bull have got a get out clause in this contract. I think Red Bull have made it perfectly clear they're not going to.
How far behind is he?
Exactly 125 points. So
they could drop him.
They could drop Sergio Perez. They won't. I think it's because of big money from Mexico. There must be some reason, but anyway. So that's
that was pretty useless gossip in the end.
Yeah. Meanwhile, all the other guys are enjoying. Oscar
Piastri, Pistachio, Oscar Pistachio.
He was at Superbikes as well, so we'll no doubt talk about that. A very wet Superbikes, but which you're nicely.
Well, Lando was there. Lando was there as well. Lando was there at the Moto GP.
MotoGP, Silverstone.
Let's go to Silverstone then. Well, wet one day, and first we have to say, get well, Susie, because MotoGP was far worse this weekend. I mean, they're still a good team, but Susie was a bit ill. She couldn't make it. So get well soon, Susie. You were much missed on MotoGP. So what is the MotoGP? And this is the thing, because when we tweet or do these podcasts, there's so many people on Twitter. Best racing MotoGP. MotoGP. I mean, Formula One is rubbish. MotoGP.
But it depends on the track, Tiff. It depends on the track.
Despite that being a British podcast, most of our influence, most of our people we interact with are British. There was bloody nobody there. So everybody raves. The crowd was pathetic. When you compare it to Formula One, which all the MotoGP fans say, oh, gosh, that's so boring. Well, but then nobody goes. It is a weird thing. So I agree, MotoGP. Now, there's some fantastic. The Grand Prix was one of the best British Grand Prix since can be remembered. Yeah, and yet there's nobody there. Now, why that is, I've no idea. Because maybe MotoGP are very vocular, not strong. Are very loud in talking about their sport, but there aren't many of them. So maybe it's a minority makes a lot of noise about how MotoGP is so good because they weren't there watching. So yes, a surprise. So
I wonder what the tickets cost because I don't know. British Superbikes, as we might have mentioned, this weekend at Thruxton. They're expecting a decent crowd there. I guess you notice it a lot more on the smaller circuit.
Well, I do have this theory with bikes that I often say that it's because they're so small that if you get close to them, you feel the vibe. I mean, you're at Thruxton, you see these bikes about 20 feet from you go roaring by, bucking and weaving. But Silverstone, with all its Formula One safety, you've got to get your binoculars on to see the bikes. And it's it's a long lap, so you don't see them very often because it's a 2-minute lap or so. So it could just be Silverstone's not a good place to have bike racing. Maybe it should go back to Donington because Donington used to pack the place out. And maybe just sort of 40,000, which is pretty good crowd for bikes, spread around Silverstone, it looks pathetic. So
I can understand on the Saturday because it is somewhere that you get on your bike and you put your leathers on. When it
rained on Saturday, yeah.
So I can understand that. And just watch. We could get some feedback on your mic touching your collar. So just a bit of clipping there, Mr. Needell.
Cool. Buy me a decent headset. You've got your monkeys between your trophies. I've just got flipping pods.
We will invest. If we can get some decent numbers, we'll invest some money. But we can't invest the money until we get some decent numbers. But thanks to all of you who do listen and watch.
So anyway, getting back to the racing.
Yes,
the racing. I mean, the racing was brilliant. Saturday was wet. The sprint race was run by Alex Marquez. So Alex Marquez is the younger and far less flamboyant and far less famous younger brother of Marc Marquez. And Alex Marquez, one of these sort of slow burners. He was Moto3 champion in 2014. Was that 7 years ago? Then 5 years later, he won Moto2. Now it's taken him 4 years in MotoGP to win a MotoGP race. So all excitement, and it was great because he rode really well on a satellite Ducati, the Gresini Ducati. But it's funny, isn't it, how it's taken him? So he hasn't won a MotoGP GP yet. But anyway, it was a great win. Everyone very happy. I don't think his brother was too happy because that Honda's still useless, and he finished 18th. The great Marc Marquez. There's still stories, people telling him he should quit and what's going to happen to Marc Marquez. So that was all good. So it was his 4th year, but he held on. A big attack from Marco Bezzecchi, also the satellite Ducati, the Rossi VR Ducati. So a good sprint race to get in the wet. That was people didn't turn up in the wet. But then, like in Formula One, the campsites are full, aren't they? And I'm sure the bikers camp out and go. I think the Thruxton's full of campers. I don't know why people don't. There aren't that many people that actually go to watch MotoGP.
Let us know in the comments below, please.
Yes. The Grand Prix itself was an absolute blinder. It really was one of the best Grand Prix. Because normally it's the Moto2s and 3s that provide all the sparks. MotoGP is a bit of a drawn-out game of high-speed chess. But again, it was always a bit threatening rain on Sunday. We all started on slicks. Marco Bezzecchi was on pole. Alex Marquez was 3rd on the grid, so he was also up in with action with Jack Miller and a KTM in the front row. So it was a really good grid, split out between Ducatis and KTMs and what was I forget what button. They're both Ducatis. But it was a fabulous race. Championship leader Francesco Bagnaia, 4th on the grid, got to the lead on about lap 2, and he and Bezzecchi pulled away. They're the two really go for the championship. So it's like a title fight between their two. It was Lewis Hamilton against Max Verstappen. But Bezzecchi made a bit of a mistake in that I always call it the Beckett's bypass, the really fast going on the Hanger Straight, lost about 100 yards or 50 yards, and under braking for Stowe. And they brake at like 200 metres. Instead of, the Grand Prix cars brake at about 45 metres to turn into Stowe. Some of the bikes brake at 200. But Bagnaia braked at 200. I think Bezzecchi braked at about 150, about 50 yards too late. And he tried to turn in, because they still, bleeding the front brake off. It's always a problem when you're turning in late. And the front folded, still doing about 120 miles an hour. And off he went to the gravel, ruined his championship challenge. So we thought that the race was all over then, because they were quite a bit out front, and so Bagnaia would just lead away. Then this pack of four caught at Bagnaia, and we just had this great. They were changing paces: second, third, fourth, second, third, fourth. But in the end, it was Alex Espargaro who came out from eighth on his Aprilia to take the real challenge to Bagnaia, and it went on. He chatted for lap after lap. Then he got by him going into the Beckett's bypass the last lap, to take a last lap win for Aprilia. So it's really good run. Brad Binder came through in third in the KTM. So that was Aprilia, a Ducati, and a KTM in the first three. Brilliant. So it's good spread out, really good.
Do you know the difference in time between the fastest lap MotoGP and the fastest lap for a Formula One car around Silverstone?
3 hours.
About 30 seconds. That's huge, isn't it?
I had the three right.
That's huge. That's huge. Well, yeah, it's about the cornering. It's the cornering.
The braking. It's just mental.
Yeah.
So really good Grand Prix. Moto 2 was a bit more of a spread out race actually, and also we didn't have a good weekend for our Brits. No Brits in Moto GP. 3 Brits in Moto 2. Jake Dixon, of course, the challenge for the championship, but he crashed in qualifying. Ended up 15th on the grid. On a lap run, he tried to go around the outside of Darren Binder, Brad Binder's brother. A lot of B's in there, aren't there? Brad Binder's brother, Darren. And Darren Binder, I think the experts afterwards pretty much agreed with what I saw. That he sort of said, well, he just took his normal line, and Jake, desperate to make up for his awful qualifying, get to the front in front of his home crowd, because he's such that sort of guy. And they just touched, and poor old Dixon went rolling in the gravel. Huge shove. He was a bit bruised, but afterwards in the garage, he wanted Binder banned. That bloke's ruined everybody's races. He's done it all the time. Ban him. Doesn't want to see long lap. And he did get a long lap penalty in the race for the touching. But I think really maybe Jake will calm down a bit and think, well, maybe it wasn't that deliberate. So Jake was out on lap 1. Sam Lowes qualified 9th, finished 7th. And the other Brit, Rory Skinner, who's a bit of a rookie in Moto 2, qualified 21st and was taken out at the third corner. So we didn't have a very good time. Up front, it was I think maybe his first win. An 18-year-old sensation, Spanish. They're all Spanish. Tom Podium was Spanish, I think. Fermin Aldeguer.
Why do they get so many amazing Spanish?
They go round and round their racetracks all year long, 12 months, and they just got a huge junior championships. And they got tracks they use all winter with the weather they've got.
Spain aren't the only country to have tracks they use all winter. I know,
but all the teams. It's a bit like Britain, where Grand Prix teams 70% are based in Britain or something like that. It's just certain sports that grew a certain element. But it's funny, he missed out Moto 3. He's only 18, and he didn't go through the traditional Moto 3 route. He did sort of I don't know what championship was. It was like a second division national Moto 2 championship where he won about 12
Where do you
of the 14
start
races.
with motorbikes, Tiff? Do you know? Like typically for racing, driving, you would start
with loads of juniors. There's the rookie juniors, the Red Bull rookies, when they're all on identical sort of half-road bikes. So anyway, it's his second full season of Moto 2, but he's always been, and he's going to win one day, and he won very, very convincingly at Silverstone. So good win for him. Then Moto 3, British interest again. Scott Ogden qualified second on the grid. Actually, the pole time that was discounted. And you know about racing a bit, done a bit of racing, haven't you? So Silverstone Grand Prix, the last corner before the start-finish line in the Grand Prix pits, someone had fallen off in the catty litter. So that was under yellow flag. But Scott came round past the incident, got to the start-finish line, pinned it, and did a lap that would have put him on pole. But apparently the yellow flag region for that corner, the last corner, goes forwards across the start-finishing line. So when he started the lap, he was still in the yellow flag zone. I mean, it didn't matter because he qualified second, which was brilliant, until he sort of dumped the clutch on the green flag lap. The front wheel came up in the air, and then it went stalled on the front row for the British Grand Prix.
How do you feel? I mean,
they wheeled him into the paddock because they have to start these things with one of these bloody engine things. They're very hard to bump, and they're quite high compression, little tiny engines. But he caught up and joined from the back of the grid. And he actually finished a bit. He got up to 12th or 13th. He caught the front pack of 14. But he's never that good at overtaking. I think he still lacks aggression when it comes to these little Spanish children and Italian children. And I think he needs to get his elbows out a bit more because he had that third place in the South American Grand Prix. Got dumped down to fifth because he barged someone in the wet. But so he was in the wet. He's a brilliant. The talent is there. And yet in the dry races, if he qualifies reasonably,
I think it will just click all of a sudden. I think
hopefully it will.
Because
anyway,
people like that are typically quite respectful and they're quite worried about what's going to happen and the implications. And then one day you just think, you know what? Let's just turn in on them.
But he should have learned a lesson because you think, okay, he started at the back of the grid. I don't know how many bikes. It's about 30, I think. It's a lot of bikes, nearly 30 bikes. So you think he's got no chance to win. So he did well to finish 13th, 14th. However, qualifying on the back of the grid, I don't know why. Maybe he fell down or crashed. Was a 17-year-old Colombian who came through to win the Moto3 race.
Wow.
So having to start at the back doesn't necessarily mean in Moto3 that you've got no chance of winning. Again, it's a Colombian that's been highly rated for a while. David Alonso. He won the Red Bull Rookie Cup. So he won rookies. He's coming to Moto3. And amazing. 17-year-old Colombian. First ever Colombian to win a Moto GP 2 or 3 race.
And they can race all year round as well.
Great racing. Not enough people watching it. No joy for the Brits is the sort of
not
summary.
Enough people watching it live there, in person. So I
don't know what the TV viewing figures are because it's only on BT Sport. Actually, BT Sport's been renamed, isn't it? I don't know what it's called now. I thought I couldn't find the channel.
I can't bring myself to pay for it. I love sport. I watch so much sport, but I can't bring myself to pay yet another 10, 15 quid a month for BT Sport, which is bad, really. I catch up on the YouTube highlights. Okay,
I suppose that's another good reason there's not a big crowd. I mean, as you say, we have a vociferous, that was the word I was looking at, we have a vociferous Twitter MotoGP and podcast, but not actually a huge number of people in Britain follow MotoGP.
There you go. Where are we going next? We're going World Rally?
America.
Oh, America.
We're going in the order of excitement, really. Okay. The Nashville Indycar was probably the second most
Hang on, are we starting
exciting.
With the least exciting, going to the most exciting?
No, MotoGP racing was best Grand Prix for entries. That was the most exciting.
So people are just switching off right now because we're going least exciting. We're going...
but we have our competition winner.
Of course.
Mind you, I suppose if the listener or viewer hasn't entered that, they won't be interested either.
I'm worried because I noticed a couple of names on this competition that I know aren't in the UK. Are they going to because it's made it quite clear that travel
expenses
aren't included. Look after you. We'll wine and dine you in terms of maybe a hot dog and a coffee. But it'd be a proper VIP experience. But anyway,
okay. IndyCar Nashville, an amazing track.
Nashville's amazing. Yeah.
And the trouble is it's very tight and twisty, too tight and twisty, loads of yellow flags normally. This year there weren't so many, fun enough, for half the race. Very hard to overtake. But next year they've got a spectacular new track that covers what they call Broadway. It goes round better and more open. So there should be more overtaking next year. But it's just the going over the bridge shot. And they're coming off the bridge, 170 miles to 180, sort of through bumps and then begins the braking area. So it's quite a tricky, it's not just a straight across the bridge. But as usual with IndyCar, especially when it's so tight and twisted, it's all about strategy, and because you've got the softer, faster tires, and then the longer lasting blacks, reds or blacks, which Formula One should do. 2 choices of tires, dump the third choice, which always causes too much confusion. Just have 2 sets of tires that they have to use. But it all depends on when you stop for fuel, and because they have to refuel, because they can't go too long without refueling. So it does depend on how you catch the full course yellow that ruins your strategy. And really, it was Scott McLaughlin, the Kiwi. He got pole by about half a second. He really was his day. And of course, he just lost last year. He should have won, but he got pipped for second place. And he led the race, but then there was a yellow, full course yellow after about 14 laps. So the lead bunch, as always, stayed out because they're leading. But from about 8th place backwards, they went in and had their early pit stop. So after it all filtered out through the whole race, it was Kyle Kirkwood who qualified 8th, who was the winner of the Long Beach Street Race. He was at the front of the pack. And McLaughlin was trying to fight his way back, but ended up being second. So perhaps the right man didn't win the quickest man of the day. But that's what IndyCar and American racing does. It mixes, and we're doing more and more in Formula One, aren't we now? When we've got now safety cars coming out, and they rely on safety cars to make Grand Prix exciting, which is what America have done deliberately for about 50 years. And Formula One's just waking up to the fact.
Well, I'm sure it'll happen.
If we don't have safety cars, we'll have a boring race like Belgium. Maybe we have to follow the American system.
But didn't we have a safety? We had a safety car. We still had a boring race at Belgium.
Well, true. So anyway, so Kyle Kirkwood won. Alex Palou, who looks like he's heading for the title, he had another. If he doesn't win, he's on the podium again. He finished third. Callum Ilott had a better race. We had Callum Ilott season. Hasn't got his aren't getting the setting, getting the car right. But he finished 12th from qualifying 18th. So well done, Callum. But poor old Jack Harvey was having a miserable year. Qualified 22nd and finished 24th. So very spectacular and wonderful to watch. It's just exciting. Just watching the cars through the opposite hands through the windscreen.
I know. You just don't see that with Formula One. One of the things you mentioned, the tyres. So the two different compounds with Indy, and the three, of course, with Formula One, and also the tyre width, because it's about 15 inches for IndyCar and 18 inches at the rear for Formula One. So you just get that extra grip as well. Everything is taking away that. I mean, they still get their moments in Formula One, of course, but it's not the same, is it? Yeah. Every corner, every time.
Cut the tyres in half in Formula One. Of course, they had Indy NXT race as well, and our Brits again, not too much success. Louis Foster, who's really fighting the championship up front, he qualified 6th, I think it was, but I think they had qualifying was like in owners' points because it all rained so much. It had awful rain out there in Nashville on the Saturday. But he's a really good overtaker, Louis. He barged his way through, great overtakes, got up to 3rd. And then on a restart, someone did a bit of weaving in front of him, then he ended up having to take the escape road, and he finished 6th in the end. Probably very frustrated. But Jamie Chadwick had a better race, a really impressive race. Again, she only qualified 17th out of 19th. And the American commentators, funny, were saying, the Europeans can't understand, the European journalists can't understand why, she's so far back. And this is proving the depth of quality in Indy NXT. Though, we've got a really strong field in Indy NXT. And where they've ever got the impression that the UK journalists think Jamie would have stormed to victory, I've no idea. However, she did have a really solid race. So she missed all the trouble. She was in a pack most of the race, 1 hour race, very physical, no power steering, really hot, really humid. And she stayed clean, stayed out of trouble, and finished 8th. I mean, so she did a very, very
best result by a mile. I spoke to Ollie, her brother, and over the weekend, and he said, it is challenging, but she's relishing the challenge, and she's really enjoying it. She said there was so much more pressure when she was in the UK, bizarrely, or racing in other series, which I'm really surprised at, because now the spotlight's on her and she's against the men. And that she's really, really enjoying it, which is good, because she's a lovely girl.
I'm sure the American press will be loving her. She always does great interviews, and I think we got a bit tired of Jamie Chadwick. She's won 3. So perhaps the UK were getting a bit bored of the Jamie Chadwick story, which was just on a plateau. It wasn't really going anywhere. She was just winning W Series. So I'd really admire her, and that was she was right in the pack, holding her own. I mean, not in the front of the field, but she's getting there.
Yeah,
I don't think she'll ever win an Indy NXT race, but Christian Rasmussen was the winner.
Never say never.
Never say never.
Yeah.
The 23-year-old who's in his second year, he's a prolific championship winner. Christian Rasmussen, really talented Dane. He's now increased his championship lead. I think poor Louis Foster's running out of races to get to the top of the podium. Then we come back to another debated sport in our sports. Again, another one where there's loads of people vocal on Twitter saying how brilliant rallying, and the rally drivers are better than Grand Prix drivers. The rally is brilliant. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. But it was very boring. The most spectacular rally with in Finland used to be the Thousand Lakes, with these huge crests where they leap over full throttle. I mean, it's so spectacular watching one car. But then it's all done to the clock, so you don't see any racing. And it's so fast through where you're standing, you don't see much action. Then you stand there and you see a car for about 5 seconds, then you have to wait 2 minutes for the next one to come along. So you're not sort of constantly excited. And of course, it's hard to televise, and we have these reports each night sometimes. But, and also there's so few cars, only 3 manufacturers. We keep on saying only 8 cars. And the rally fell apart on day one because we lost both the Fords. Tanak took a bit too much of a cut, which is always a bit of a temptation. He's running, hit a rock in a cut, which pushed the wheel up into the exhaust pipe, I think, or something, and it blew the engine up. And then his French teammate Pierre Loubet got a bit wide, took a whole corner off on a tree. And then the biggest surprise of all was when the championship leaders, the Max Verstappen of rallying, this young 22-year-old Kalle Rovanperä, had a big old roll end over end. So he was out. So we were down to 5 cars for the whole of sort of Sunday, Sunday.
That's crazy, isn't it? Really
and
crazy.
Elfyn Evans, the good news for the Brits was Elfyn Evans was the one that had been following Rovanperä, his teammate, who's he's put on Elfyn in his shade for the last year and a half. But he cruised to quite an easy win, holding off the leading Hyundai of Thierry Neuville. So the only excitement for the last 2 days was a battle for third between Taku Katsuta, the Japanese Toyota man, and who was it, Suninen, who's come back into the Hyundai team. He hasn't rallied much, so he's been a bit rusty. So anyway, Katsuta won that by a few seconds.
So I think they are some of the best drivers in the world, without any question.
There's no doubt about it. It's incredible things they do. But
what's going to make the sport more enjoyable and more popular?
I don't know. Because when you watch the last stage, they're all as spectacular as each other. So the helicopter fight, just having speed through between the trees is terrifying. But they're all doing the same thing. So you think, well, nobody stands out visually. So Toyota, for their 4th entry, which they often have, put in the team manager, Jari-Matti Latvala, who's former superstar of the World Rally, hasn't rallied for 3 or 4 or 5, I don't know how many years. And he finished 5th. He picked up, was last in the WRC cars, and took about 2 minutes slower than Katsuta and Suninen battle. And you said, well, why haven't they put a youngster in? Put a new name in. I mean, Suninen's come back. He's been in and out of World Rallies for 4, 5, 6 years, I reckon. He's been up there and then dropped. And then you look down to the WRC 2. So that's the Formula 2. So the Formula 2 winner was 6th overall. And that was Oliver Solberg. Now, Oliver Solberg, of course, was a kid that was put in WRC last year. Then was kicked out because he kept on crashing too much. And 3rd in the WRC2 was Adrien Fourmeau, the other French guy that was in the Ford team for the last 2 years, but crashed a lot. So they kicked him out. And his 5th overall in WRC2 was Andreas Mikkelsen, who's been in WRC. So the candidates to be the new drivers to come into the top level have all been there before and been dropped. So I don't quite know who the next, Kalle Rovanperä is. Where are they going to find the next kid? And if they don't put them in the spare cars for a weekend when they've got a spare car, they put in their team boss. It confuses me a lot and makes rallying look more worrying to me.
Yes.
I've had a very worrying podcast, isn't it, really? We should have started with a worrying podcast.
I'm worried about your clipping on your microphone because you've got a very beautiful shirt on.
Swinging. Well, yes,
swinging on that very crisp collar that Mrs. Needell's probably
beautifully ironed beautifully.
Yes.
Just a couple other races in America the weekend. IMSA at Road America. I didn't see any of it. My favourite road course in the world. Spectacular 4-mile odd track. 8 cars, the new LMPD category, new hypercars, or they call it LMP1 in America. 8 cars finished on the same lap at the end of the race. It was won by a Porsche 963, private Matt Campbell and Felipe Nasir from Brazil. And 2 Acuras were 2nd and 3rd. But it had the largest, shows how this sports car is growing. We highlighted this on the podcast. It had the biggest crowd around Road America for an IMSA sports car race since the track opened in 1979. Wow. Now, that is impressive. That shows public are getting really drawn to these, Porsches, Acuras, BMWs, Chevrolets. It really is taking off. And they had about 3 classes in IMSA. They have the LMP2s, they have the GTs, about 47 cars going around the track. So you've always got something going in front of your eyes. You're spectating. And a good British win. Ross Gunn won the GT category, sharing with Spaniard Alex Ribera in an Aston Martin. So well done, Ross, waving the flag out in America and driving and enjoying being a racing driver. So
how do you know he's enjoying it?
Well, because he won. NASCAR, however, NASCAR's only halfway through as we speak. Hopefully, the NASCAR race, very spectacular. One of my favourite tracks, actually. It's the 2 mile. Where are they? Forgot the track. Where are they? One of my favourite tracks. They're in. No, not Mississippi, Missouri. Not where. Anyway, it's a great track. It's got a little bit of banking, a 2 mile oval. And about 3 of the top drivers have crashed, and they're 170 miles an hour calling with that much banking. They're right on the ragged edge,
Michigan
both ends of the track. Michigan, Missouri, Michigan. And we've already seen in the race is almost up to halfway before the rain stopped play yesterday. We've already seen really top drivers. Kyle Busch was the first to go backwards into the wall, just lost it. Christopher Bell, who was on pole position, battling, lost it into the wall backwards, big shunt. Chase Elliott, who's desperate to have a win because he hasn't qualified for the playoffs, which was only 3 more rounds of points to try and get into the playoffs. He lost it backwards in the barrier. So very, very tricky track, great racing. When the rain fell, it was Tyler Reddick leading from Alex Bowman and Kyle Larson, the 5, lurking in 3rd place. So hopefully the trouble is with
weird though. That's weird, cancelling or postponing or having a rain check and then come back the next day. They do it in some sports like golf and stuff, but it's
what's weird about that? That's what they've always done. If we can't get the race done, we'll do it tomorrow.
So in Formula One, for example, they would just declare the race.
I couldn't do that with Formula One. Think of all the jets that are flying. We've got my private jet booked. I've got to be flying out tomorrow, and all the hotels and all the team and. Because the team, most of the Indycar NASCAR people, they're living in their motorhomes at the track, and they just travel from track to track. They race every weekend.
Virtually every weekend, yeah.
They're living at the circuit anyway, so we might as well stay over and finish the race on Monday. The shame is where it's old. I don't know which used to be a different channel round. They used to catch the Monday racing, but I think Viaplay, I haven't seen its schedule. Whether it's going to be on now, if we go and look at our tellies, I'm not sure, but hopefully I'm trying to find that. So, good stuff, but controversial. MotoGP, no crowd. WRC getting a bit dull. What do we do?
Yeah, I don't know, but I know what we're going to do now. We're going to do the...
Next week first.
No, okay, go on then. Okay, let's get...
Because that leads in. That leads in.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely
wait for it. Next weekend. IndyCar and NASCAR at Indy, Annapolis. It's on the road course, and on the Saturday is the Indy race. Really good. On the Sunday, if you're still
it's not the big one. It's not the 500, of course, because
no, it's on the road course, the old Formula One track. Okay. They go the other way around, pit entrance at the other end, and then NASCAR do a road course race on the Sunday. And we're talking down now to this playoffs where the top 16 on points go through winner race. So we would either win here. Or the next race, which is another road course. Where do they go next? And then there's only one oval, which is the crazy oval, what you call it, not Daytona. Talladega, maybe.
Talladega, nice.
So that's it. Indy or NASCAR at Indy. And then that's it in the world of motorsport, all I can find. If you're in Britain, you can either go up to Scotland to watch the BTCCs leaping and bouncing over the Knockhill curbs, or you can be down south at Thruxton for the British Superbike race, the place to be. And why is it the place to be, especially this weekend?
We're going to be there, Tiff. You and I on the Sunday anyway. So it's Friday,
Anyone else going to join us then?
Well, there might be a lucky winner. That's a very lovely link. Thank you for that, Tiff. So hopefully now I'm going to share my screen. Share screen.
Oh, gosh, this isn't going to work.
It is going to work. And we're going
Look,
so we've got
last week you left me like a mug on the telly on my own, didn't you?
I know.
So this isn't going to work. If you left me like a mug, what's going to happen then?
So we're going to press all the numbers, all the entries in here. Then they're on Excel Excel.
We were looking for two
spreadsheet.
winners. Is it just one winner that gets two
one
tickets?
pair of tickets? So one winner gets 2 tickets. So
Okay.
2, and it's an amazing experience.
And they both get a passenger ride with me. They both get a passenger ride with
you.
Lapid.
And they both go to the pits, and I'll buy them a hot dog.
Okay.
And they can talk to lots of the riders and all that sort of lovely stuff as well. This is
right. It's not going to work, right? Go on, press the spin.
It is going to. Hey, wait. We've got to build up a little bit of suspense here. So, what else can we say about this? This magnificent prize, thanks to Stuart Higgins, sorting this out. And here we go. Are you ready for this? Because it's quite quick, I think. And then I'll quickly get my spreadsheet. Here we go.
I've never seen this done live.
No, neither have I. What number?
This is brilliant. I've always wondered how these things work.
This is a random generator.
It's really good to show. Oh, 40. What do you mean 48?
Number 48.
Selected?
So let me get my my spreadsheet.
Oh, I see. So the name doesn't come up straight away.
No, and then I've got 40, and it's not that good.
Wow.
Sarah. So all we have is Sarah from Twitter. Sarah. Oh, I hope this is a real name because she's got lots of numbers after her name. I'm sure
Have you got a contact? Have you got a contact?
Well, Sarah's going to have to send us a DM, or we'll send Sarah a DM. Sarah 27936, and the number goes on. So we will see. But I'm sure Sarah is very legitimate.
We'll tweet her. Can we tweet her Twitter tag, and then I'll retweet her Twitter tag?
That's exactly what we'll do. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do that right now. So
Sarah,
because we want people to watch this podcast first. We need the views. We need the listens. So watch this podcast, and then after the podcast, we'll announce Sarah is the winner. And then
tonight, when it goes out after, so about 8 p.m, we'll tweet it.
Yes.
To repeat
and if
the winner.
Sarah doesn't, for any reason, accept this wonderful prize, and it is a wonderful prize, then we haven't really done many of these, you can probably tell. Then we'll redo the draw tomorrow, sort of evening. So got until tomorrow 7 p.m, 24 hours. I think that's fair to collect this prize, because people are going to need to plan their travel and things like that. So Sarah, if you are listening, congratulations, and we look forward to meeting you on
Listening
or watching, yes. And thanks to everybody who joined. Thanks for everybody who joined the competition as well. We'll do more and more of those. Share, let people know, and we'll buy him a decent...
Bikers comment on Moto GP. Rally people comment on rallying. We want more comments. Let's get some debates going.
And rally people comment on the biking, and bikers comment on the rallying. Just get amongst it. Mix it all up. Thanks very much for listening and watching.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.